Tonight, I'm being joined by a very vocal lawyer and social commentator, right activist, Mr. Dele Farotimi, who joins us virtually from Lagos Island, well, I say downtown or uptown of Lagos. Mr. Dele Farotimi joins us virtually from Lagos. And also joining us is a senior advocate and professor of law, Professor Adoba Omorege. He also joins us virtually from Abuja. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us. First and foremost, perhaps I should allow Mr. Farotimi to have a shot at it first and give us a sense of what you make of Governor Akeredolu's legal, what do you call, views, express his views in this sense. And for him to have come out to say what is good for Katsina, it's good for Ondo State or for the southwest region of the country. In our laws, can state security outfits or regional security outfit bear arms? Who has the power, the prerogative to permit carrying of arms?
Well, good evening again, Shale, and good evening, learned professor, learned Silk. Let me quickly say this. Maybe the questions as to the correctness or otherwise of the legal position in relation to your question should have been addressed to the learned Silk. Me, I'm not a lawyer like that, because if we must tell ourselves the truth, the very basis of Nigeria itself is predicated not on law, but on force. The last time the Nigerian people expressed their will in any way was back in 1963. So what you have today are the imperatives of men who have elected to give us what they call laws. And this law that they have made is what Governor Akeredolu was speaking to. And if you listen to him, he wasn't just talking about bearing arms. It was specific. He says we believe in one Nigeria. But that one Nigeria appears to have become one where we become a country with two systems of law. So what you are hearing the chief executive of a state saying is a confession of his impotence in the face of the unjust laws that governs Nigeria. And he has merely pointed at Katsina as an example of just how uneven the system is in actual day-to-day operation. So when you ask that question like that, the truth is that the 1999 Constitution does not allow the learned Silk governing Ondo State to assume the powers that he has taken. But the truth again is that if his sworn duty is to protect the citizens of Ondo State, and he finds himself hamstrung by the powers of the federal government, which has grown beyond the scope of his own creation, which is why the governor was again talking about the pre-independence constitution and the internment of those who agreed to form Nigeria. So the question is not really one of law, as the Leonard Silk has said, it's one of necessity. You are a governor and you have no powers, you are hamstrung. It's not even almost. It's become clear that the federal government appears to have an interest in handicapping those who are being faced with the marauders that we are faced with in the rainforests of southern Nigeria. So if the governor has come out as he has, he himself has made it clear that it's not about law. This is about a need, a necessity. We are facing an existential threat. And it is interesting that it is the governor, who is usually a very tame person, that has come out to state this. There is nothing he has said that other people have not said stridently across the length and breadth of southern Nigeria. So he has spoken everybody's mind to a very large extent. Forget politics. Reality is that we are actually facing an existential threat. And for the federal government to continue to demand that the Amotekun force be carrying shakabula and pump action, whilst you have Fulani marauders in our countryside carrying automatic weapons, and the government itself confessing its impotence in the face of this, then it is really unconscionable to ask that the governor continues to harm his own force with shakabula when he's faced with sophisticatedly armed Fulani marauders. So it's a laudable thing. I applaud him. I hope it will not be lost in the hubris of presidential pursuit and that he'll follow it through to a logical conclusion. I applaud what he has said and I hope you follow through.
Yeah, the governor said under the doctrine of necessity, that is perhaps on which the point of law that the governor wants to come from to allow Amotekun to be armed. Would that be sufficient, considering we run a constitutional democracy? And in this sense, the fear of uh, how to use it, under what laws, the police being empowered to do this, and all of that. And I guess, Mr. Faritimi, that we are going to do 2023 election, and anyone who wants to lead this country must then be able to answer the question as to the structure of this country and how he or she will handle it, and how he or she will keep Nigeria together, and how he or she also will protect Nigerians and Nigeria as an entity in the face of the existential threat that Governor Akeredolu has pointed out.
Well, Sheon, the reality we are faced with is that Nigeria has practically been destroyed almost beyond repair. Whoever is going to be ruling Nigeria must be willing to reimagine it and then convince the people that there is a need to put it back together because it's almost been destroyed beyond repairs. The security architecture has been willfully and deliberately destroyed with all sorts of nepotistic policies that do not even make sense, because unless some people are deliberately out to destabilize and destroy the country, what they have done does not make sense. But this is a first step. He spoke about the doctrine of necessity. The reality is that a state exists principally to safeguard the lives and properties of those who live within its borders. Nigeria stopped existing for that purpose for quite a while. The state is failing. Palpably, is failing. I don't know why we keep lying to ourselves about the fact that Nigeria is failing. So if a governor has woken up, and I hope enough of them would wake up and they will be altruistic enough to understand that this is actually about saving the lives and properties of Nigerians, encouraging people to even believe that the country can survive the multiple attacks. So if a governor has woken up and is saying this, I hope other governors will wake up. Katsina State today, I do not begrudge them the fact that they have the capacity to now defend themselves. But this should be available to every other state that is willing to take up the cost and the training and then put in the enabling laws. There is already a framework in place. There is an Amotekun law duly signed by the governors, duly passed by the state houses of assembly. That's already a legal framework within which this can be allowed to work if there is indeed the political will to safeguard the lives and properties of Nigerians. We can't continue the way we have, so something has to be done.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Faritimi. Let me go to Prof. Prof, now, you heard what Mr. Faritimi said. You've heard what the statement from Governor Akeredolu. And this is not the first time we are hearing this kind of commentary from a governor. Governor of Zamfara State had also said it, and there are reactions. Governor of Benue State had also said it. And this is coming out of frustration of some of these governors. Their second titles, is Chief Security Officer of their state. Give us a sense, first and foremost, from the point of law, where do we go from here? It doesn't look so much to me that these governors are now taking the laws into their own hands when the law really cannot protect or serve them the way it should serve them. Where do you think we should go from here, Prof?
Sean, thank you very much for having me. Let me thank my little friend for welcoming me also, Mr. Dele. I think that it appears that governors are now waking up, actually, to the reality of actually what the Constitution provides. If you look at Section 11.2 of the Constitution, you'll be amazed that the section even provides that states, and not the federal government alone, should be involved in maintenance of law and order. This is something that many people don't talk about, but I have the opportunity of saying it. If you look at that provision, it says that nothing, in fact, it's about the only portion of the Constitution that grants concurrent powers to both the states and the federal government in such a way that the doctrine of covering the fee does not apply. Because ordinarily, when both the federal government and the state have powers to exercise in respect of a particular matter, whenever the federal government make laws in such matter, state laws are literally set aside or suspended. But interestingly, Section 11.2 of the Constitution says that anytime issues of law and order, maintenance of law and order, are concerned, the House of Assembly of the state cannot be obstructed from making laws to ensure that there is supply and services, essential supply and services for the maintenance of law and order. And when you are talking of essential supplies and services, you can imagine what that means. When you're talking of services, Amotekun, as far as I'm concerned, I've written on it. Amotekun can be accommodated under that provision. In the same vein, supplies. What are supplies? Supplies can include vehicles, it can include arms, and so forth. So it's actually left for the state to normally advise the governors. The powers is not the governor's power. It's for the House of Assembly to make provision so that they can be supplies and services for maintenance of law and order within the borders of the state. So it's a misnomer to say that because the Constitution provides for only the Nigerian police force under Section 214 of the Constitution, and also grants some leverage for the state governors to operate or to direct the police force. It means that no other security outfit can exist. It's completely it's not correct. Even now that they have current framework, it's only the police that exist that provide the security matters. You have any security outfits in Nigeria? I'm not talking about the armed forces now. You have the NDLEA, for instance, they bear arms. You have the civil society, civil defense, they bear arms, and many other bodies. So there's no reason why we should, over these years, shut ourselves in the foot at the state level, expecting only the Nigerian police force to be the be-all and end-all as far as
Prof,
matters are concerned. So summarize, Governor Akeredolu is right, or is completely right.
Okay.
And I don't want us to politicize it. It's not a political issue. It's purely a constitutional question.
Absolutely. And that was why I'm going to do a follow-up, because you mentioned the principle of covering the field. The Section 3 of the Firearms Act specifically gives the prerogative and the powers of bearing arms to the president at his discretion. Let me just go for the benefit of Nigerians who do not have these laws in their hands presently. Now, it says, quote, "No person shall have in his possession or under his control any firearm or ammunition except in accordance with a license granted by the president acting in his discretion." Now, you mentioned the principles of covering the field. There is
that section.
Go ahead.
That section you quoted is a section of
an
statute.
Yes.
I quoted Section 11.2, which is the Constitution, and you know what that means.
Yes, absolutely.
Section 1.1 of the Constitution is very clear that any law that that is in conflict with the Constitution is null and void.
Yeah.
To the extent of the inconsistency. So I'm not saying that the president does not have power to provide, to license and all that, but I am saying that, and if you go and look at it, Section 11, Section 2 of the Constitution is very emphatic that no law, nothing can prevent the State House of Assembly from making law to guarantee law and order in the state and ensure the provision of essential supplies and services for maintenance of law and order.
But Prof, apologies, Prof. Do you also advise your man to on which of the lists this issue of arms bearing is on the legislative list of the Constitution?
I was just going to make this point. You see, we should not always look at the issue of federalism and federation in a conflictual sense, as if you are fighting each other. No, it says we operate a cooperative federal system. It is expected that in furtherance, of course, the arms is in the exclusive list. And so inevitably, before you can even acquire guns, there are some federal issues you have to deal with. But it's not such that the federal government will now become obtrusive. I think that's the point that Akeredolu was trying to say. It's not a political issue at all. In other words, if the president has not been, cooperative, for instance, just assuming, he's not been, if he has been obstructing the effort of the states, particularly the states operating at Moteku, to acquire guns so as to maintain law and order. And this sort of bold statement, that's a way of challenging the president to ensure that he does not operate in a double standard manner. You can't permit one particular state far away to allow, to acquire guns and then obstructing others. It doesn't make any sense.
Absolutely. So, Prof,
I think that is the question. It's not a political matter at all. Please, let us try to avoid politicizing it. That's anytime we do that, then we lose focus completely. We are talking of maintenance of law and order here, and law and order is something that affects all. And so I commend Governor Akeredolu for his bold statement, and it's a wake-up call to all of us.
All right. Let me go back to Mr. Farotimi on this matter. Look, what we are talking about tonight is about lives and the livelihood of people. If you meet people whose family members have been killed by these bandits and these killers, they will tell you that no matter what it takes to protect the citizenry, the governors should do it. And in fact, that some of the governors are coming around at this time. Some people will refer to it as late in the day. Now, we're going into the electioneering period where a lot of promises are going to be made. What concrete things do you think Nigerians should be asking those who want to lead them in terms of properly shaping the structure of this country to be able not only to secure the people, also to put confidence in the minds of people that they can go to the market or they can get on the expressway from one city to the other and they are getting to their destination without being kidnapped or being killed?
Well, let's first of all be clear about something. This is deeply political. It is not about law. If it were to be about law, Akeredolu would have been busy citing sections and clauses. He didn't. But he was quite strident in making clear that unless our unitary system of policing is a deliberate method of subjugation, which must be challenged, then something has to change. So you begin to understand that whoever we're in a good season and it's a good conversation to be having. And it is a very urgent one too, because it has become even more apparent that we have to take another look at the way the country is policed, the entire security infrastructure and the structure of its governance. Why the governor of a state should have to defer to the license of a president who might be as nepotistic as our current president, who would think nothing of allowing licenses to one part and denying it to another part, yet they are in the same political party. So it's quite political, even though we can couch it in legal terms. But it is important that the people themselves begin to look beyond issues of ethnicity and religion and begin to demand substantive changes from every layer of person who comes to them to ask for their vote. What is the need for us? Would we get the federal state that has been stolen from us? Are we going to get it back because you got involved? Or can we expect that our lot would remain as miserable as it currently is? These are the questions that must necessarily be asked. If the candidates are not responsive to demand for restructuring, obviously we need to be looking beyond those ones. I'm being careful because I am quite partisan on the subject so that I don't particularize, but these are political issues and the people must need ask questions of those who are offering themselves, not just for the presidency, for governorship. Imagine if other governors in Yoruba land and in the entire South are speaking specifically to these challenges that are facing all of us. Imagine if they were. We will be in a much better place. So we need to pay attention. Who are the people we are sending to houses of assembly? We must become interested in what's going on around us.
Although, one has not been able to verify the claim upon which Governor Akeredolu laid his commentary on this matter from the Katsina point of view, that the federal government, the video showing that the federal government has given a permit to Katsina security outfit to bear arms and all of that. But before we go on a break, just quickly, Mr. Farotimi, if you can give us a sense of where do we, because we will finish the election and come back and things will look as though, it's normal, and we go about our businesses just as usual. And this issue of our structure of how we need to operate so that states can be more functional will be put into the back burner. How do we hope, because that was part of the question I was asking, how do we get that conversation to the point of execution? In the fact that what Governor Akeredolu was essentially raising is that there is a faulty system we operate in this country, some kind of a double standard. How do we achieve practically a standard that works for our federal states?
So there is a coming clash of visions. The one that demands that we continued our race backward to Kabul, and the one that is demanding a race into the future where we run the human race and stop running the rat race into which Nigerians have been plunged for a while. That clash of vision would demand debates, and those debates are going to be taking place in form of campaigns. Those who have nothing to say during the campaigns would have loads of slander and lies and divisive languages to trade. But those of us who demand a race into the future, we would have a lot to say to the Nigerian people at the appropriate time. But what I can say to you is this: it's going to be business as usual. Forget that bit about so will they have the election will be over. Yeah, the election will be over, but this is going to be a very unusual election. The Nigerian people are seriously interested in what becomes of them going forward. They are interested in who rules them and what ideas they will be ruled by. And I have no doubt on my mind that we are going to be entering a season where we're going to have a lot of changes. I'm excited about what is coming. I'm not, I don't expect that it will be business as usual. Mark my word.
What kind of business? What are you expecting? Anything extraordinary?
Unusual? Yes, I am. Oh, yes, I am expecting everything to change. I expect the Nigerian people to become interested, as they have become quite interested. I expect there to be a very, very clear choice presented to the Nigerian people. The Nigerian people are going to have to choose whether they want to raise into antiquity or whether they want to raise into the future. And I believe that the coming election, once the campaign starts and the ideas begin to evolve and people begin to hear, they would understand the clarity with which they have to make the decision for their future. We have to decide whether we are a country or whether we are a slave plantation, for instance. Nobody gets ruled by the will of impunity. You have to live by the rule of law. But the way we are right now is anything but that. But the people need to be told, they need to be shown. And I'm excited about the process of showing them, about telling them, explaining to them why they need to choose a different path into the future. I'm excited about all of that. And I do not believe for 1 second that it is beyond the capacity of the Nigerian to take the right decision. I don't trust INEC, hoping that they will behave themselves. We'll be watching them. But I do not believe for 1 second that the will of the people would not effect the changes we require.
All right.
We need it.
On this matter, let me get Prof's parting shot. Prof, How do we concretize, standardize some of these issues? Because that is in the heart of what Governor Akeredolu is talking about.
Well, I think that's why we have the governors forum. They need to come together, and then be able to exert pressure on the president to ensure that the governors are carried along. Because at the moment we seem to have, so to say, assume that the governor should play the role that the president plays as far as security is concerned. Although that is a different discussion entirely. But bottom line is that you can have a provision that I've mentioned, which allows the State House of Assembly to pass laws with respect to maintenance of law and order and provision of essential supply and services. And then you have a president or the national level obstructing the actual constitutional intent for granting that kind of power, unhindered power to the State House of Assembly. And what is it? The issue of procurement of arms. If small and light weapons are all over the place without, illegally, I don't see why you should obstruct a lawful, part of this country's government from doing the needful, which is to acquire arms, if that is the concern of Governor Akeredolu. Of course, Amotekun has been in existence now for about 2 years, almost 2 years, and nobody has actually challenged the constitutionality of that outfit. And even if that is challenged, I'm sure it will fail. So in order for the outfit to be functional as it is intended, it ought to be able to have a major tool for its operation, and that is to bear arms. And then it ought to be able to collaborate with the police for the purpose of achieving the whole idea of maintenance of law and order. What happened in a war, is something that is very embarrassing. It's not enough to have this sort of terrible situation and everybody sympathizing. No, government exists, as my learned friend has said, to protect the life and property of citizens. And so if government cannot do that, whether at the state level or at the national level or even at the local government level, then the confidence that the people will have in government will erode.
Thank you so much, Prof.
So at the end of the day, my advice is that this is not a political issue at all. It's a very serious matter of security of lives and property. Whether or not you are a politician, you are going to be affected one way or the other. And so our political leaders must come together under the governance forum to engage with the president so that they can have a uniform application and make it easier for the states to be able to acquire arms so that we can stem this terrible tide of insecurity.
Thank you so much, Prof. I appreciate so much, as well as Mr. Mr. Dele Farotimi. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your legal and perspectives on this matter. Thank you so much indeed.